500,000 people could lose their jobs depending on how the trade war goes. It's like, that's huge.
Trauma is internalized and then becomes part of your DNA.
We're leaving this country. It's over.
And a decision like that should not be made solely based on emotion.
You left yourself on mute, sir.
I was so surprised that someone showed up.
Right.
Surprise. I told people on Friday we had a surprise for you. Look who's here. OMG.
Hey, good to see you.
Hey, we got to do this.
Upgrade.
He is in the house. Ryan Oneil Knight is back on the Morning Vibe. And you said you'd go away for a little bit of month, so you kept to your word. What's going on?
Hey, June, we started to have to lean in. We are working with some new franchise partners, one in Hamilton and still licensee in Thunder Bay. So our little baby is growing, and we still have our youth program happening in the summer. And we started doing car wash fundraisers, which have been really exciting to work with different like sports teams and school programs. So yeah, man, a lot's been happening in the world of DK.
Wow. So Ryan Oneil Knight is back. We don't know for how long on the Morning Vibe. So, so first of all, how's family?
Very good. Yeah, fam's good. Thanks for asking. And how's family with you? I know we check in every so often, but how
everything is going okay. Everything is going okay. We're overcoming the heat, not complaining about it, but overcoming the heat. But I
want to give a quick shout out to, we were out doing door knocking with the Detail Ignites team, and there was, I think, a couple of teenagers, 2 girls selling freezies. And I was like, well done, because I will buy 10 of them right now. It was so timely. So yeah, nice. I want to make extra money for the summer. So I always talk about, lemonade stand with my daughter and the book that we wrote. So yeah, man, get out there and hustle. It was good to see that.
Yeah, hustle and carry a bottle of water.
Yes, or some freezies.
Or some freezies. This is good. Well, yeah, so people are finding, yes, Ryan is back. So say hello, say welcome back, Ryan, say all those sort of things. We got him back on the Morning Vibe. We don't know how long for, but we got him back. So how do you like the new look so far?
Okay, I see it. So background changes each episode, or that's the main one?
No, we still that, but just the way we're side up. And hey, so another thing, as I told Ryan before, if you want to get in touch with Ryan, we're going to show the details later. But if you have a smartphone, you can swipe the QR code in his screen, and it'll take you right to his website address.
Very cool. I got to test that out myself. I like that.
So that's been going on. Man, so you brought some interesting things to my attention, that because you're an insider.
It's been happening.
Yeah. So first off, the Black Opportunity Fund Investment Fund. I've heard about, but what's your lens on that?
Yeah, so they were presenting at the Social Finance Forum in June, I believe, early June, and talking about they're now accepting applications for entrepreneurs to get investment from this new investment fund so it's Black Opportunity Fund Capital is like the new arm of the Black Opportunity Fund. And so they announced their new CEO. They've announced their board of directors and their investment committee. So if you check LinkedIn and follow Craig Wellington, you'll see the updates of who's now running the new capital arm. And I believe they're starting out with $150 million fund. And there's 2 components of it. So the investment fund and a housing program too.
Yeah, no. And from what I understood, and I spoke to a representative, I guess their PR representative, who I've got to get back in touch, because we are going to get Craig on the show to chat about it.
Yes.
It's a unique fund. They're saying there's not too many funds like this in North America, I've been told.
I believe it. Yeah, Black Opportunity Fund definitely is creative with how to bring capital to entrepreneurs. I know they launched their own line of credit program where entrepreneurs can get up to $50,000 as a line of credit for operating capital, and being able to I would say, smooth out the buffer. A lot of times entrepreneurs are operating, they don't have buffer. So the line of credit really helped with that. So yeah, I'm curious to see more of like the types of entrepreneurs that'll be applying for this fund and getting through.
Okay, a few other questions in regards to that. Were there any recognizable names on their board of directors or who's leading the fund?
I did see Ray Williams. He's
Okay.
on that board as well.
Okay.
Colin Lynch and
Okay.
Dennis Mitchell. So
Okay.
some of the founders from the nonprofit arm, the Black
Yeah.
Opportunity Fund. The other ones, I mean, I assume they're heavy hitters. I'd have to really. There's a lot of people from other investment firms. I saw like different capital like investment firms. So yeah, it's good people to know. So definitely connect them on LinkedIn.
And it's interesting too, though. I'd say probably the majority of entrepreneurs I know don't even know about this opportunity.
And that's what I was asking the questions, like, where do they apply? What's the criteria? We have to know and get the word out so people understand how to approach the opportunity, because it won't be for everyone. A VC type investment isn't for, I'll say, the initial startup. Like, you usually have to have some momentum to bring in capital. So now there's kind of tiers to this. It's like, based on your company, where do you fit, and then where should you go to get money to get to the next tier?
Okay.
Usually
what before we move on to another quick conversation topic, from your lens, what makes this opportunity, if at all, different than any others that are out there?
Well, that report that came out about the lack of funding going to Black founders, so the entire investment ecosystem in North America, I know is less than 1%, but I forget the exact number. Maybe I think it was 3 cents of every dollar goes to Black founders. So, and there's so much money in venture capital. It's wild. Like, if you look at $150 million, definitely is a lot and a great starting point. But we're in the realm of $100 billion, trillion dollar ecosystems where it's flowing all around us, and Black entrepreneurs aren't understanding, one, how to get investment for their companies, and also those that have started funds. It's not easy to raise dollars for a fund that is now going to invest differently. And it's interesting because the VC model isn't exactly perfect. So new ideas are needed in the venture capital space. So that's why I'm paying close attention to this model. Like you said, it's different than what traditionally how they might invest, but also still in the same realm of venture capital. So you have to be on point to get that kind of money.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, those gentlemen are at a certain level.
Yes.
Right.
Exactly.
So you need to be at or above that level.
Absolutely.
But here's the challenge. This probably eliminates a lot of entrepreneurs out there.
Well, it should be inspiration for entrepreneurs, because I would say it'll look like, if we look at 10,000 entrepreneurs currently in the Black ecosystem, maybe 50 would be cream of the crop, ready for this type of investment. So now what do we do with the rest of the 9,950 people? There has to be ways to get them ready for the big leagues. And I always talk about ACBN being kind of the farm team to get them into single A and into double A to triple A. And now this type of fund is really like a big league type entity.
All right. You also, of course, you're an ACBN baby. You're relaunching your microloan program.
Yeah. So we are working on the official announcement, but there's a couple foundations that have expressed interest and commitment to help to fund our ACBN microloan program. So we're going to be able to kind of restart it. We had started with Inspirit Foundation. They had put in about $250,000 so that we could loan out to entrepreneurs, really as I would say a pilot. And now we're raising $3 million, and we're about halfway there. So we want to support about 200 entrepreneurs over the next 18 months. So this will be the first place that we announce it to say it's now back open, and especially for those that may have applied for other programs, whether it's the Black loan programs at banks or at the Black Opportunity Fund, and not quite ready for their line of credit. Like I said, we're the farm team. So fall back to us, and then we'll get you ready for those tiers that already exist. The entrepreneurs just need to be ready for it.
All right. And final thing before we go to break, Sean Allen running for city council.
Hey. So I saw the announcement on LinkedIn. So I'm not sure if those are familiar with Sean
Not a
Allen.
lot of people are.
Right.
If you
So
want to educate us.
he started a mortgage brokerage called Matrix Mortgage, and I think Matrix Mortgage Global, and so very successful with you know the brokerage. I feel like they've won Broker of the Year a few times, and he also started Matrix Cares, which is a foundation that supports the local community. With those two entities, he's done a lot of work with the Scarborough Business Association. He was one of the past presidents, and also like organizing mayor's lunches and premier's brunches. So showing that we can connect to these politicians, and also doing the business summit and also the housing summit. So I saw his hand in a lot of, I'll say, advocacy on what we want to see Scarborough build up with. And now he throws his hat in the ring into Ward 25. So Scarborough Rouge Park. I'm not sure exactly the outline of it, but if you're in this area and want to see some change and support for someone from our community running. So he had his launch, I think last week. So I was there to support. But yeah, I didn't think that he was going to throw his hat in. So the announcement kind of shocked me. But
You know what? And before we went live, when you told me this, I go, that doesn't surprise me with as much. He's in that political environment.
true.
I'm skeptical about how much politicians can help our people. That's a whole other conversation
Right.
in that regard. But congratulations to him. I hope his campaign goes well. And if he wants to come on the show, he can.
Yeah, we'll send the invite.
We
And
can
like
go ahead.
exactly like you said, I'm wondering if he's seen like being adjacent to them something about what they do that now if he's on the inside he can execute. I would love to hear
Uh,
more about what being in politics it's a whole different realm. So now
yep.
yeah, you don't want him to just become the pasty leg, glasses wearing, short pants politician that you can't get a hold of him anymore because now he's a counselor and a total shift. So yeah, I think he'll stay true to his word. He's a Scarborough cat, and yeah, he definitely wants to see Scarborough win. So
Well, again, we'll see how much he's like how well he's even known in the Black environment. Because if we went out there and said the name Sean Allen to melanated people in Scarborough, will they even know who he is?
well, and this is where politics now spreads you out to all communities. Like you need to be known. He might be known well in the Black community, but is he known well in all the other communities? That because Scarborough is big, and I have to check
Yeah.
Ward 25 itself. But Scarborough should be really its own city, because
Yeah, B1. Well, the question will be, can Sean be B1 or is he going to be everyone one?
but that's what politics it's difficult to be B1, and I haven't seen a lot of politicians that can stay there because I think he said there's either 500 or 600,000 people in Scarborough.
Yes, there is. Oh
So
yeah,
now,
and it's getting bigger. Like it's
right?
because there's
That's a
condominiums
lot
going
of
up
people.
everywhere.
But he said something interesting too, that Scarborough actually doesn't have a hotel, and he was talking about looking at the FIFA World Cup coming, and no hotels in Scarborough that could now take advantage
Yeah,
of all these people.
that's interesting. There may be one or two, but there used to be one at Kennedy and 401. I don't know if it still exists, but I've seen a number of hotels become places where immigrants stay.
Gotcha. And I see like motels along,
Yeah,
Kingston
I
Strip,
don't.
but
Yeah, the
not
strip
really.
motels are passe, but there
Yeah.
isn't a major hotel in Scarborough. There used to be the Delta at Kennedy and 401. They used to be the main one, but not. And a lot of those are either being taken over or they're using it for immigrants to stay in,
Gotcha.
or they're being torn down and condominiums are being put up.
Okay. Yes, yes.
All right. Well, we could ramble forever because Ryan has not been with us for a while, but we're going to take a 30-second break. When we come back, we'll do some housework. And then we've got Donovan Martin Sr. We're going to be talking about some guy named Sean Diddy Combs because I don't think too many people chatting about that situation. So we'll be back in 30 seconds. What is up, everybody? It's Dr. Vibe here. These are two ladies. They're not all over the place. They're forward and they're straight shooters.
I got to stand in front.
No wonder people don't understand what the Democrats have been doing. That man lied 36,000 times, and we know this because you all counted it.
This is part of the story that a lot of news outlets are not talking about. We are back, and that's Primetime Saturday with Isha and Lala. And we did a replay this past weekend because it was the 4th of July in the United States. What I'm going to say, if you can, check out this Saturday show, because when they're away for 2 weeks, OMG. And plus, they haven't had a chance to talk about the BBB, the big, beautiful, so-called big, beautiful bill.
Okay, right.
Haven't had a chance to talk about the topic we're going to chat about today. They got so much stuff to chat about, so do not miss it. So on the platforms that we're broadcasting on, please check it out. Oh, another thing, Ryan, we are now broadcasting live on Substack.
Okay, I've never used Substack. So what's different about Substack?
Well, Substack, I would compare it. It's the YouTube for writers.
Oh, interesting.
It's been around for a long, long time. A lot of writers use that, doing posts there. Also, a lot of people in the media field who are no longer having jobs in the United States are now taking it to that platform and broadcasting from there, or not broadcasting, writing articles and stuff there. And a few months ago, they opened up to do live video streaming on that platform.
Right.
I've been recognized as one of the early adopters going in. So almost every live show now is also being broadcast on Substack. So there we go.
That's great. I love it.
All right. So, we're not just lazy while you're decaying all around the province, All right. So let's do some housework. Subscribe to the Dr. Vibe Show on YouTube and hit the notification button. We have now, Ryan came back. We hit 1,850 subscribers. Yay. Yay. Follow the Dr. Vibe Show on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, TikTok, Blue Sky, and Substack. So, yes, I'm actively on all those platforms these days. Also, join the Discord group. Email me at dr@vibeshow.com, or click on the link that you see there. Also put in the chat and all the different platforms. Advertise your business, product, or service on any of the platforms that I'm a part of. Email me again, dr@vibeshow.com. And then Indie Soup Media, still going strong. 15, 16 months, almost 28,000 subscribers, run by our good friend Dr. Tachi out of Fort Lauderdale, Florida. There is a YouTube link. There is a website link. All right, we are bringing up a returning friend, and he's going to be on the show once a month. So let's bring up Donald Ralph Martin Sr.
Good morning, everyone.
Yes.
How you doing, Ryan?
Very good. Always good to see you, brother.
You too. Always nice to hear all the good stuff you continue to do with the businesses.
All right, so let's do the proper introduction for Donald. All right, and so Donald, the Daily Scrum, people may not know a lot about it. If you can give a little background on the Daily Scrum, and then we'll get into our conversation today.
Sure. We are a North American-based news organization, started in Canada, and we have a location in the U.S. We cover the daily news with a majority of the focus on politics. We were the first news organization in North America to introduce digital AI news anchors, and now it's become the daily norm. We're one of the first corporations to adapt early AI technology. We have some amazing things that's coming down the pipeline. And right now, one of the biggest projects we were working on, which we touched on last week, was trying to build a database for missing and murdered Black Canadians, especially children, just because the high volume of reports we're reporting on every day about kids or adults going missing. So we started a GoFundMe. It wasn't successful. Believe it or not, we had a lot of pushback of saying this was a terrible idea. We should not have a database for missing and murdered Black Canadians. But you know what? We push through. We can say now we have a organization that is going through an education organization, which I'll share with you guys later offline, that has agreed to build our database, a big
Nice.
Canadian education facility.
Nice.
And the beauty of it, we when we pitched the project, because it's massive, the Canadian university stepped up in a big way. We had, I think, 5 or 6 reached out, and so we're going to have full access to this program through the master's students. They've committed a good amount of resources to building this database. So we are extremely happy, and lots to share once it's in place. So big progress. Very happy for
Yeah, I
us.
love that.
Big win, big win, big win. Well,
Huge win.
this is good. Ryan, before we get into the conversation, any catching up you want to do with Donovan before we get right into our conversation today?
No, happy to hear the progress, and yeah, looking forward to our conversation today. Yeah,
Okay.
we have on this whole.
Okay. So recently, like get some background. Recently, the Sean Diddy Combs case has been in the news, but it's more than just it's about more than just one celebrity. This is much bigger issue at play: sexual violence and how our society handles it. So let's take a look at the case from our perspective, and also let's look at it a broader picture, because Diddy's case is just the iceberg. So, Mr. Guest, where do you want to start with this with the Diddy trial?
Well, I think the number one thing we could start with is we've been hearing throughout the trial, is it okay to play Diddy's music anymore? Or is it
Oh boy.
now that now that the major of the crimes or charges have been dismissed?
So were we seeing while the trial was going on a boycott? Because I know with R. Kelly, there's like a hardcore boycott.
Yes.
Michael Jackson survived his. I feel like people will still play Michael Jackson's music, even though he was accused. I don't think
Mhm.
ever charged, but now P. Diddy, Puff Daddy, has been charged. So can you walk us through what he like? I think the initial charges, and then what he actually got convicted of, and what he got off with.
Yeah, so he was charged on 5 counts.
Mhm.
So the two he had, first of all, he was charged on 5 counts. The major ones were essentially RICO charges. So those are the charges you would give to organized crime
Okay.
bosses. So essentially, what the federal DA was trying to say, Diddy was the head of an international crime syndicate. And so there's multiple layers of RICO charges. So they were not able to successfully prove that. And
Okay.
which is the huge crime, because each of those 3 sentences carry essentially up to a life in prison.
Yep.
So the ones they were successfully able to charge him with was under the Mann Act, which was known for a senator Monson Act many decades ago. Essentially, he was charged with prostitution across state lines. And
Okay.
because the two charges are the same in the same fall under the Mann Act, they would, if he would serve concurrent years, so they serve as one charge, essentially to narrow it down and serve as one charge, maximum of 10 years. So because he's a technically a first time convicted felon,
Huh.
and he's been in jail for almost a year, it's likely he will get probation or maybe a couple years max. They're thinking right now.
Wow. And so I'm curious your thoughts on the sentiment from the verdict. Are people now, has he totally alienated the black community and those that were fans because the I mean, if people were not following along with the trial, and I'll give a shout out to a gentleman, Armand, that was doing live coverage of every day and the transcripts and stuff. And so being able to hear about what he's being charged with and how he treated staff and girlfriends and the I guess the prostitution that he was doing and bringing people around, it was a lot. I mean, a lot to digest. And I know his mother was in the crowd and his children. So them now seeing this side of their son and their father, I'm curious the sentiment in the broader community now. It's like, is it, we know there's deviance in Hollywood and in the music industry, but when you see it laid out, you're like, the, and it makes it, like you said, bigger than just him. You like, okay, he was doing these freak offs, but
Mhm.
sex parties is not new in the entertainment industry. So it makes you really wonder what is happening behind closed doors with in these like celebrity circles,
I think you're 100% right, but I think we got to take one tiny step back as
Mm,
to how did he was charged.
mm,
So the story was that he sued the owners of the essentially the vodka and alcohol companies who were his
Ciroc.
partner, Ciroc,
okay,
for more, and he had won his case.
gotcha.
And so they were essentially saying, well, you know what? We're going to end your empire because for years they had dirt on him, what was going on. This was their trump card, so to speak.
Mm,
And so when he won the court case, they opened up the floodgates.
wow.
And then the biggest thing they wanted him charged was with the RICO charge.
Hmm.
So this is not a vindication for him, but this is more than just a symbolic win for him because the major companies, the big alcohol who wanted him out, essentially lost, and all the peers of his, such as you had a lot of the famous DJs come on and testified against him, current and former rappers
Mm,
and current producers in body. So essentially, they all lost, right? So back to your thing about what community sentiment is, it's a lot in favor of him because the biggest thing you hear right now is, well, the major the major person in the abuse was Cassidy, his
mm,
ex. So of
right.
course, we've all seen the horrific videos, right? This is
Mm,
absolutely terrible. But the reason why he was essentially acquitted on the major is number one, all of the two people who were essentially accusing him, uh, they were with him for decades and never left, right?
okay.
So that's the main argument, one of the main arguments the prosecutors were able to prove that. And then, of course, the very damning text messages um, by
Mm,
both of them saying, the freak offs they loved them. So, so that was that was essentially one of the major reasons he was acquitted. And of course, there was no signs of him anything remotely what a mob boss, right? So they were able to say, okay, this is what a typical mob boss does:
hmm.
murder, drug, racketeering, and Combs had none of those persona. So that case of racketeering, it just fell apart, right?
Gotcha, gotcha.
There's so much to unpeel or peel with this.
Yeah.
And, you know, there's, yes, the attention on him, but then there's a whole issue of sexual assault,
Hmm.
Hmm.
right?
Right.
And, you know, and I'm gonna bring this fact up. According to RAIN, it's RAINN, Rape, Abuse, and Incest National Network, out of every 1,000 sexual assaults in the United States, only about 310 are reported to the police, and of those, only 25 lead to jail time for their perpetrator. That means less than 3% of rapists ever spend a day in jail. So it's staggering how most preparators
Mm,
of sexual assault never face any real consequences. What, and I know it's a little bit off, but just in general, what does this say to women who have been sexually assaulted and a gentleman, like we saw the video?
hmm.
How come he's not being charged for that? Is that
But
fair?
didn't he get? Wasn't that the charge that went through?
No.
The multiple charges went through, but the are you, if you're talking about the video of when he was assaulting her and dragging her in the
Yeah.
hallway,
Yeah.
that's actually they settled that case actually.
That's true. Okay.
So for 30 million. So he was, if anything, that video would show abuse, physical violence, nothing sexual.
Mhm.
Um, Now, what led up to that is a different story. But so he was not charged with that because they made an out of court settlement. Now, the charges he was brought up on were actually by the feds for sex trafficking and RICO.
Mhm.
So those parts fell apart. So essentially, what they were saying is he was hiring escort services
Mhm.
and transferring them across state line. So had all the escort services been within state lines, then he would have not technically been charged for prostitution. Now, people try to say, well, what's the difference between R. Kelly and Diddy? Well, the difference is R. Kelly's people he was trafficking, many of them were minors or under the age. So there's a huge, huge difference in those two cases.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Well, to answer this question that's on screen, so Dr. Vibe, are you gonna listen to Puff Daddy's songs from the past?
No, not at this time. No. But
See-
again, it's I don't know. I don't think I will.
Hmm.
Again, but it also said, can you separate the artist from their creation, from the
That's
individual?
a lot of times the
You
big
know,
question.
and we are a very forgiving society.
Hmm. Donovan, how about yourself? Would you, if it comes on, would you still listen to it, or is it something that you would leave the room if his music comes on? Like if you,
So, so let me put this into context.
Hmm.
Uh, so the biggest thing we hear all the time is if Michael Jackson, Puff Daddy, um, all these artists' songs come on, we're just gonna flat out deny everything. Um, so what people are forgetting is there's a few real key points here. Is to create a song, there's in some cases there's 100 engineers on the song,
Wow.
right? Now let's bring that. Now I have to put this into context. Now we bring in Cosby,
Mm,
right? And we hear the same thing. We'll never watch the Cosby Show again.
yeah.
To create an episode is usually over. Let's just think this number sinking almost 1,000 people
Wow. Yep.
working on an episode, right?
Hmm.
And you'll see where I'm going right away.
Yeah.
How many people do you think it takes to build one airplane
Yeah. Massive.
and to build work on the spaceship,
Hmm.
to build the combustible engine, to build the solar panels or parts of the light bulb that was built,
Hmm.
right? So the reason why I say all of those things is there's a project in World War II called Project Paperclip, and that was when nearing the end of Nazi Germany, the U.S. government took over 1,000 Nazi Germany scientists and brought them to the United States.
Okay.
And in those times, those scientists were instrumental for developing many of the aerodynamics things we see on airplanes, the
Hmm.
airplane engines, solar panel, the rockets we use to send the spaceship into orbit, and many of the components of the NASA spaceship that we know now, and many parts of the light bulb. So the question is, knowing that, and the millions of people that were
Mm.
um, killed because they were instrumental in providing these apparatus we need every day. Do we stop using them?
That's a good question. I'll rephrase the question. I'm not sure right
Yeah.
now about this, but it's an interesting thing. So what we're at half, a little past half through the first hour. Just want to reacquaint everyone. We're with Donovan. We're chatting about, are you still going to listen to Sean Diddy Combs' music? And we're here with, I was going to say special guest Ryan Knight, but he is a co-host. Yeah. So one of the things I want to do is I want to get audience interaction. So we have got a little bit of an audience interaction to put up on the screen. So if you are watching on our YouTube channel, we've got a question for you. And the question is, I had the question and I lost the question. I can see it right now. Okay, let me put it up here in big screen because I just lost it for a moment. Yes. How do you feel when you heard the verdict in Diddy's case? Do you think justice was served? Why or why not? So if you're watching this live on the Dr. Vibe Show YouTube channel, we would like you to interact with us, family. We've got some questions here. Producer Matt has a question, and his question was, I'm having challenges this morning with the screen. Okay, here we go. Were they focusing so much on a RICO? Why were they focusing so much on a RICO charge? I thought the main charge was on sexual abuse and mass blackmailing.
Uh, the reason why they were focusing more on the RICO charge, because that was the one that would essentially, they had 3 shots of putting him away for life in prison.
Damn, gotcha.
Yeah. And so the people well connected wanted him to go away for life. And so the other charges were essentially supplementary, because if you think of it, out of millions of charges they could have brought forth, those are the only 2 charges they were able to bring on were sexual misconduct or prostitution. They weren't able to get him on anything for violent crimes. So the next best thing is RICO charges. And whenever you have a RICO charge, that is probably essentially those were put in place to um, shut down organized crime. So,
Right. But then,
and
so with, and something that I guess concerns me is where you see the black male celebrity get torn down. And you saw it with Cosby. You saw, I mean, R. Kelly, Michael Jackson, now P. Diddy, and where people have things on you that at any moment they can just crush you. We saw it with the senator that was dating the 16-year-old, Michael Thompson in Toronto, making bad decisions, and then they can tear you down at any moment. Like no matter how high you rise, there's always something out there. So is that more a thought around making sure we make good decisions as black men so that these types of things don't destroy us in the future? Or will there always be something? Because if an allegation isn't true, you can still lose your credibility and your livelihood trying to fight back to say like that is not true, but court of public opinion will still destroy you. So curious your thoughts on black men being torn down almost at a whim of this Ciroc. Like if it's true that Ciroc now is trying to get back at him, it's like is that a thing we're doomed to always be fighting against, the ability for us to be torn down by people holding stuff over us?
I think everything you say is correct. Uh, the in context, what I would say is, why are we doing it? Because we always hear about ownership, right?
Mm-hmm.
And everybody chases, I want a sponsorship deal. I want this guaranteed money. I want this. So with guaranteed money comes you're essentially beholden to your financier or your sponsorship.
It comes with the strings.
Yeah. So there's three, but if you look at three rappers who actually this could something like this could never happen, and I'll tell you why. First of all, Master P. I'm sure if everybody knows, and I'll go real quick. Everybody knows the story with Master P, right? When he started out, nobody believed in him. He believed in himself, and he said, "I don't." You had a lot of the labels wanted to sign him for $1 million back then in the early '90s was a lot of money, and he kept saying no, no, no. And he said, "What is the biggest? Who is the biggest artist in the world at the time, and how much money is he making?" And back then it was Michael Jackson, who was making an unheard of, I think it was $1 to $2 per record. It doesn't sound like lots, but that in the industry where most people were making around 20 cents, 15 cents per record. So he met with, so he said to Michael Jackson's lawyer, "What is the biggest deal I could get you?" He says, "Well, it's going to cost you $25,000 for 1 hour with my time." So he sat down with him and he said, "The biggest deal you could get is what's called a distribution deal, where you own 90% of everything and you just pay the distribution company 10% to distribute your records, and you have no ties to anybody." So when he did that, he made hundreds and hundreds of millions. He's untouchable. And then I'll tell you, so this is kind of back to your question. Then the second is the artist is Lil Boozy out of Louisiana.
Okay.
Super smart for what he did. He basically said, "I'm going to say anything I want and I'm not going to be canceled, because as soon as a rapper says something, they're canceled." And what he did was he's like, I'm a true independent. It may have changed, but I'm going to rent my own venues. I'm going to put everything on myself. So nobody could cancel my venue or my shows because I own them. And which is brilliant. And this is kind of what a lot of people don't know. This is kind of where Drake falls in now.
Okay.
A lot of people don't know that when Drake is booking a concert, Drake owns the majority of everything.
Okay.
He owns all the equipment you see that are traveling, right? So these are stuff that he's forward thinking, where he's owning the equipment. He's has major say in the venues, right? I mean, obviously he doesn't own Air Canada, but so to your
He
back,
does a lot of his stuff at the OVO,
yes,
right? Like his own fest that he does.
yeah.
Now
So
at ACC, or sorry, Scotiabank.
so back to your original question, Ryan. It's, people, when we are chasing that money and we're not chasing ownership, we will always have somebody beholden to us because they're going to protect their investment, right?
Right, right.
And then of course we saw the biggest one of all was Kanye West, right?
Yeah.
And he's, he, for years he was trying to get out of his contract, and they wouldn't get him out of his contract, and so he said, what is the surest way to have all of these companies ditch get me out of my contract? He went on that rant, where, and of course, that rant essentially, all the major brands says we don't want a part of him, and broke all his contracts. So now he's free. So as long as we continue to chase endorsements, there will always be the company have something on everyone to protect their investments and to keep them in line. And some people are just content with making, I don't say, I'm not being facetious, but some people make 5-10 million a year on sponsorship. That's a lot of money. But they're also content with it. They have no desire to rock the boat.
Okay, I'm going to jump in here. There's some questions and some comments, but I'm going to get through the comments and we get into some questions. So, First Lady of ACBN, Charmaine Hussey, says,
Please.
"Morning. I'm turned off from listening to Diddy music. Good morning to C Nurse K, says good morning. The Walamala, good morning to you, also says they were doing whatever it takes to get him in Rico and failed. Also, good morning, Dr. Tachi. Also, look at Jonathan Majors, the Wallamal. We forget a few years ago the
That's
situation.
an interesting
Yeah.
example because, yeah, he
Yeah.
was falsely accused.
Yes. C Nurse K, good morning, all. I believe deliberations were rushed because they were up against a long weekend and jurors were tired. Also, the jury makeup was not ideal. All right. We'll get Walamala says, I think they're going to come after Yee in 25 years.
Oh, boy.
The McMillan Group says, good morning to you also. Boozy and P have a playbook that most artists should follow. All right.
Right.
And also, before we get to the McMillan Group's questions, two things I'll enter into this. The people who give you money can take it away from you.
Absolutely. We're seeing it.
Also, two, don't hang around with people that have nothing to lose.
Yeah.
Okay. Right.
All right. Also, the McMillan Group has a question. Do you mean his music or his music he produced? Because he produced so many artists.
Well,
So-
that's a great question. Hmm.
And that's a good, actually, so that's a fantastic question. So here's another analogy then, right? The most deaths and horrific things in society has created under three entities, or we call them organizations or countries, right?
Hmm.
Britain, Canada, and the United States.
Hmm.
But every day we salute and play the flag, listen those anthems, right? So if just alone the atrocities that have been committed alone in any of these countries outweigh anything you could think of. And again, these are not excuses for any of the behaviors done by any of these people. But yet, society has no problem proudly playing the songs, the anthems, the music. But when somebody says, well, you should no longer play any of these music, and you're dismissing everybody who took part in the creation of these art. And again, it's not accepting what any of the individuals themselves have done. So where is that? Where do we draw the line that we are able to systematically dismiss the works of everybody because of one person,
Hmm.
but we could accept the atrocities that has been committed by all these respective countries in the name of this one song, which is the national anthem. But yet that's acceptable. And we have no qualms about playing it proudly, knowing what it stands for.
Gotcha.
I can see that some people will look at this conversation. Yes, there's a whole there's a business financial thing, but there's also the impact it has on those, especially women who are sexually assaulted. And I know that you said earlier on that that case has already been taken care of, but I am seeing people put allegations against Cassie. And I'm going, and of course, it's probably a lot of social media people, but the thing is, a key fact is that sexual assault is the most under prosecuted violent crime, according to the U.S. Department of Justice. The prosecution rates are lower for sexual assault than robbery, assault, or murder. So and again, we've said that that was handled in another case, but that impact of that and seeing how Diddy got off on the most serious charges, how do you think women will feel now saying, I don't want to testify. I don't want to bring an accuser against me. How does that impact women?
I think it's gonna in wow. So in general, it's gonna impact women negatively. Now, when this story, when the verdict broke, I tried to get a good spectrum for us of just the general feeling of people's opinions. And to be very honest, they were very split right up the
Yes.
middle.
Yeah.
There were, and you even saw on live TV, a lot of women were happy he was not convicted, and a lot of women were distraught, right? So again, it all comes down to is what camp do you fall in, right? And there's always going to be that divide where, unfortunately, people are going to say, well, she should have left the situation, but it's not that easy, right? From stats, we know people who are victims, it's not easy to just get up and say, we're going to leave, right? So it's that question of moral, what's everybody's moral compass, right? Whereas you're hearing, and the biggest argument you're hearing with the Cassidy is, well, she could have left anytime. She was living a life of luxury. She had that $30 million payout, and that's what everybody's hung up on. And then comes the most damning things in the court: the years and years of text messages she's sending, how much she loves the stuff. So that's that's where, and of course, her sending that message does not saying there's aspect of it she absolutely hate or were deplorable or were degrading or humiliating to her. That's not dismissing all of that. So the question is, can there be both, or is it either or?
Hmm. The
Well,
the McMillan Group has a question. Says, do we cancel Mary J. Blige since she has had several collaborations with him?
Well, go ahead, Ryan.
well, that's where you're saying the ripple effect of the work he's done spreads so wide that it becomes just we're indoctrinated to all the music, just like Canada. We're indoctrinated to the anthem because to fight back and try to pick out everything that we're benefiting from because of the atrocities. And it was interesting that we do land acknowledgements now. And when you read the actual treaty that they signed, like under duress and not beneficial for the indigenous people, yet we're at a point where it's like, okay, we can do the land acknowledgement and still benefit from the treaty itself. So when we look at, like, you're not going to be able to know all the music that Diddy has his hands on, or all the artists that he was able to support and help them make music. So if you hear music, are you always going to be thinking, oh, this is something that sounds like P. Diddy had a hand in, so I'm going to go tell the DJ my thoughts on the case. It's like when we hear the national anthem, we don't go up to the school or whoever's playing it and say, like, do you know about Canada's atrocities? Like every single day, it's like it's too ingrained in our natural life to always be fighting that. But I think, like, if I hear P. Diddy rapping, I might think of the case and be like, man, and I'm hoping that the case actually shines a light on the rest of the deviants that are in the entertainment industry and in Hollywood to hopefully cut down on people feeling like they have to be part of freak offs or sexually submissive to people with power just so that they can be in the limelight and get a chance. Like, I feel that is what I really took out of this.
Well, this is the thing. Why do many people who look like us look to entertainers as their leaders?
Hmm.
Well, they get the spotlight, right? It's who.
But remember,
make
those,
us see.
if you look to them as leaders, who are those people controlled by? they're controlled by record companies that really don't probably care a lot about us. All they're caring about is making the money.
We see it. True.
Just a thought.
It's a great thought, but also one other thing to the person who asked the question on Mary J. Blige.
Mm.
So here's an interesting thing is which never really gets covered in the media is Mary J. Blige was accused of violent and spousal abuse of her husband,
Okay.
and she is a known recovery from substance abuse,
Mhm.
where he had filed for divorce, where in the end, I believe she was had to pay him alimony.
Mm.
But that's a reversal. But that never makes it into the public that she was physically and abusing her husband, who was her former manager and had a major addiction to alcohol. But she's not ever being blackballed or being dragged in court. So, so then there's lies that question is should we still be listening to Mary J. Blige's music because of her domestic issues?
Good question. Good question. The Walla Mala says, speaking of music, Diddy had a song with Notorious called Victory, as if he time traveled from the 90s.
Okay.
She also says the defense absolutely ended her just on the text alone.
Ooh.
And good morning, Fitness IQ Cam says, morning, morning.
Awesome.
This is interesting conversation. Yeah, there's, as I said, there's so many layers of this conversation. Yes, there's a P Diddy but there's also the whole domestic violence issue, which is I've tried to interweave, and I think we'll have to do a conversation just on that alone, because to try to mix both of them in can be a little bit challenging in regards. But I feel and I didn't watch much of the trial. I heard some reports when the verdict came down. There were some people that were pouring baby oil all over themselves. I just went, really,
Well, it becomes
really.
spectacle, right? That is, that's the way of the U.S. Everything it can be spectacle.
Yeah,
All for
but
the
most
likes and the clicks, man.
but most of those people look like us, really and truly.
Right?
You need it's that crazy.
Yeah.
I don't
Yes.
know.
Fortunate. I think they wanted him to squeal on the other players in this ecosystem of freak offs and abuse. And I mean, I would have liked to see that. Like, who else is similar to Diddy? Like, we need those names so it can protect those that are trying to get into this industry because there's way more than him.
Oh,
And I hope people realize he was just one person, and this is like the way an industry operates. We keep seeing snippets of it, but yeah, it's like
I,
how do you protect yourself from the
I have a
power
question. I have
imbalance?
a question for both of you. Does 47 pardon him?
Pardon me?
Does the
Oh
current
yes. Oh yes. 100%.
You think so? And I guess I was
100%.
thinking, is he a fan of the? Oh man, yeah, you think so? That way?
100%. Because there was a conversation when this was in the heat before he even got convicted, and he was just like, "I know Diddy. I like Diddy. He's a good guy, and let's just let it play out." So listen, you got to remember, Trump and Diddy partied together
Yes.
forever,
Yes.
and
Yes.
so I could see him pardoning him. Look, he pardoned all the people from January 6th.
Yep.
He pardoned a lot of the rappers.
Yep.
Like, listen, he's transactional. He's
Anyway,
good,
yeah,
but he's a transactional president. He's
yeah.
look, if it's gonna make him money, he's okay.
That's it. Well, as I keep on repeating the famous quote now, I feel that David from the Atlantic said, 47 only cares about two things, himself and money. That's it.
Okay.
That's it.
Unfortunate.
The Walla Mala says Diddy and 47 used to be great friends, so it's possible despite their slightly deteriorated relationships.
Hmm.
Look, 47 may come into this because he may think it's a way of getting black votes.
Well, they're in trouble. Midterms are in less than a year.
Mhm.
They're They're in
and
trouble.
they're in and here's what people are with Elon. Okay, with Elon Musk's new party launch yesterday, America Party, because the rift between Trump and Musk is real. Now that there's no more Tesla subsidies, which is massive, that's billions and billions and billions.
Hmm.
So Trump's dismiss it as just another gimmick. But here's one thing: as much as Elon is a narcissistic, vain person, um, when he does something, he's not doing it to fail,
Right, right.
right? And that's the part people are.
What an interesting conversation. Three interesting individuals: Diddy, 47, and Elon Musk.
Yeah.
What
Well,
a trio, man! What a
what,
trio.
what Donovan's saying is Republicans need to pay attention that if anything happened because of Trump being in power, the worst thing that could happen to the Republican Party is a new stable party for Democrats and Republicans, but Republicans really because they put all their energy behind this guy to keep them in power. But if it creates a way that another third party comes in and can start actually splitting votes, they should be very scared of that. Like all the rest of the big bill and everything, it's
Okay.
not as damning as if Elon can get this party off the ground to even just be relevant. It
All
doesn't
right.
have to be, I guess, a three-party system, but if they're relevant enough, they can sway the victor. So
I want to
interesting to
I want to bring it back to the center here because we go. That's a whole other tangent.
see.
That's not ever.
My
So
apologies, I do have to jump, but yeah, I'll touch base with you. But always good seeing you, Donovan.
You too.
Back to back.
all right. So
Give give
Ryan,
give, give our future candidate. Tell him to get on the
Yes,
horn.
I'll send him a note. Yes, yes.
all right. So Ryan, pleasure seeing you as always. And will we see you on Friday? Okay. All right. We'll see you on Friday. Take care. All right. It's myself and Mr. D hanging out. So we'll kick it out with some more conversation topics. So welcome. JJ Mars says Diddy won't serve that much time. Once he's free, he'll go back to his old ways. Derek, good to see you this morning. Derek says, "Good morning. I notice I used to the clubs that the used to be maybe at the clubs division between women. How groups of women could talk about a woman and what she's saying and what she's wearing. I'm not surprised." Okay, I'll skip producer Matt's question for a second. The Walamala says, "I think the real reason they did not please release Diddy is two things. He's safer inside, and his release would have caused an uprising." The Walamala says, 47 and Mr. Mutz was inevitable. A globalist and nationalist can never work together. All right. I didn't want to get into Elon today. I really wanted to not get into Elon today. All right. So some things I want the Diddy thing, but also the whole area of sexual violence. And I'm gonna say something here, and people can take it whatever they want, but I just want to put it out there that most sexual violence victims are female. According to the World Health Organization, 1 in 3 women worldwide had experienced either physical or sexual intimate partner violence and non-partner sexual violence. So what Diddy did is not uncommon to Cassie and maybe some others. It's a gendered crime. The vast majority of victims are women and girls, but anyone can be a victim, and we have to recognize that. What, Donovan, should we as melanated people take? Okay, let's do it this way. What should Black men take from this case, Diddy, etc., going forward?
Hmm. Well, if we're waiting for Diddy to take anything away from it, then that's a problem. Um, History of violence has been around for centuries. So if we're only now using Diddy's case as a wake up call, then we have to take a real hard look in the mirror and say, we need help, right? This is just another high profile case that just happens to be per, involved with most a rapper or entertainer that most people like and adore, right? So what we should be taking away from this is it's never okay. Assault is never okay. Violence is never okay. And if you see something, say something, right? And you should never put yourself in that situation as a male to be abusive. But then again, it comes patterns, right? You know, if you grew up in if you were a male who grew up in an abusive home and this was acceptable practice, you're going to pick up these generational traits. If you're also a male who, which high statistics in the United States, where many males grow up without a father or a father who's incarcerated, right? So they're lacking a lot of positive role models, male role models. This is nothing taken away from the mother, but they're lacking positive role models from a male perspective to say a man should not put his hands on a woman. Now, in context, I say to my young daughter is I never I never ever want to see you put your hands on a man ever first. And I say that because you see a lot of these times is you see too much on TV where um, there's an argument and a lady will slap a man first. That's a problem because you do not know the history of violence of that person and what they can do to you. Um, so I always say when I see that is how do we protect not just black women or women in general is now if it's just a different situation if somebody puts their hand on you first, right? But I see a lot of stats where you know we're being involved where you're physically assaulting someone. And I say, number one rule men, women, keep your hands to yourself because you do not know what that person is capable of that you are striking, and you do not know their history. Now, defending yourself if somebody does something to you first, yes. But a general rule of thumb, I say, do not put your hands on anybody because it's never ends well for anybody.
Okay, good stuff. Some more comments here. Dr. Tachi says, "Good morning to Derek. APL, a positive lifestyle. Good to see you. Yes, I believe Diddy will be pardoned. I do hope that that as part of the pardon deal, he will they will highly recommend therapy for Diddy." Fitness IQ Cam says, "I'm more concerned with the gentleman's comments after this plea." Derek says, "Could it be the judge had sympathy for the victims and decided to protect them by not releasing him on bail?" That's true. APL says, "Yes, I believe Diddy will." Oh, okay, we've got that. Said that. Walamala says, "Everyone needs to be responsible. Nobody should be hitting or slapping anybody, male or female."
Correct. So one of the all I think all those comments are bang on. One of the main reasons why Diddy was not released from jail, the judge says it's because he's a violent person and he needs to be remanded. But I also believe there's a lot of truth to what your guests are saying about the safety issue for him too, right? So I think there could be two truths to it. Um, but the real question is going to be is on the sentencing day, right? And because he was charged in a RICO, he was in massive, like a maximum, essentially security to at the state level or at the federal level, actually, because it was a federal charge. So now that he's beaten the most severe charge, the question is if he remains incarcerated, do they move him to a minimum security? And those are the things that um, we need to know, right? because it goes back to the thing of safety, right? If they're truly afraid for his safety, then do they say, well, it's a safety issue, we cannot put you in a minimum security? But isn't the point of having um, corrections officers to keep you safe? So
So Fitness IQ Cam says, agree, both men and women, keep your hands to yourself. Derek says, I've taken from the whole Me Too movement is to be aware and careful. I disagree with your guests in the fact that if you grew up in a house with abuse, that you repeat the pattern. He says, I grew up in an environment and choose not to abuse or be abused. All right.
no, no. So it was not a statement of totality. It was just referring to actual statistics in by various American, the government, that says black men who grew up in a home without a father are more likely to be incarcerated or follow patterns based on those. So it has nothing to do with any specific individuals that they choose not to take part in violence. That is fantastic. It's just from statistics that are saying the probability of a person who grew up in a home of violence repeating certain parts of that is higher than a person who grew up in a stable home, two family home, two parent home with no act of violence. So there's a definite difference there.
Okay. The Walla Mala says, if they release Diddy, they won't let the public know for safety, of course. All that people will find out. They will find out if he gets released. People are gonna find out. Like, no doubt about it, they're gonna find out. I do you do you feel that we will see him be released in the next 10 years?
Oh yeah, he. I don't think there's no way he serves 10 years in prison, because remember, they have to follow precedent, right? And they have to follow sentencing guidelines of similar cases, right? So if you take out the word Diddy, he is, and take out, let's keep him as John Doe, right? He's just another person, first time offender, caught with prostitution, and it's male escort. So he wasn't in the sense of, it's not the traditional sense of prostitution where we know somebody is on the street and they're doing this. It was, he hired escorts and they came in from out of state to commit specific acts of freak offs in frequent times, scheduled times, right? So there's a huge difference where it's somebody who is, every day I have somebody and I'm coercing them into prostitution and I'm earning money from this. And then, so that's a big part of what people are forgetting. He was not earning any money on this, right? So, whereas the whole goal of prostitution is to earn money from illicit acts, right? So, there are clear sentencing guidelines that the judge should follow, right, at his discretion. But he has the best lawyers. Now, remember, his main lawyer, this is his second RICO case he's beat in a year, right? He also got off another famous rapper, I can't remember his name, on RICO charges. So to think they're not going to be well prepared at sentences to bring up case law and precedent would be silly. So I don't foresee him serving 10 years. I foresee him either serving a few years, um, and maybe a year or two with time served, right? Or house arrest. So there's a lot of ways, but there's no way I see him serving 10 years. It just, it wouldn't um, it wouldn't add up, because if you appeal that, you have to appeal it based on precedent, right? and so there's precedents already been set. So it will be hard to say that he will ever serve 10 years based on similar crimes that have gotten probation worse than that and has never seen jail time.
Okay. Fitness IQ says to Derek Tuggle, I'm glad you decided to do the opposite from your environment. She also says, but the probability are normally high, unfortunately. She also says, I know I'm late to this conversation, but is it possible for men to start to educate young boys and men about sports? Yeah, I was going to talk about that as we wrapping up soon, but definitely I'll address that before we call it off. Uh, do you find it interesting, Derek? Not Derek, Donovan, that there's sort of divided amongst women about this, black women about this case?
You know what? I think it also, I don't find it interesting because we also have to speak to people's experiences. Again, I've been on sites where a lot of women were just happy Diddy got off and were wish they were had a chance to go to one of his party to this day.
Wow,
So you
that's
see the
interesting.
so you see comments like that, right? And then you have to think, okay, what would make somebody say something like that? And are they wrong? That's the question, right? Are they wrong? And so the biggest thing, the prosecution were not able to prove that, you know, not everybody. What was it? Because he has very wild sexual taste, or he's involved in these type of activities. Does it make it wrong? Right? So then it becomes subjective of what's right and what's wrong. Somebody's fantasies may not be everybody else's cup of tea, but is it wrong? Right? And so a lot of people who are like, look, I'm in this industry, the sex trade industry, or I'm just a person who has a high tolerance for this type of sexual behavior, and I've never done anything. So does that make me wrong, or does that make me a criminal? Should I? So it's a conversation that there are no easy answers. There are no right or wrong answers. I mean, the wrong, but the wrong act is when it comes sexual abuse, right? But a lot of people are saying, well, if you take the sexual abuse part of it out with Cassidy and uh, the other person, all these acts were technically among consenting adults. At least that's what, according to the court cases, right?
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. Got let's see some more comments here. Fitness IQ says, "LOL. If you really want to go to a freak off, find a play party." and Fitness, she goes, "Don't ask me why I know." Oh well, I know you're not going to give us an answer publicly, anyways. Derek says, "Again, it's a race issue. Not excusing Diddy, but someone like Charlie Sheen, who was in the list of clients of Heidi Fritz, was never brought to trial." Yeah, I think there's definitely certainly a race aspect to it also, because I'm sure there's a lot of the current president of the United States, him and what's the gentleman's name? Oh, who died in
Epstein.
Epstein. Yeah, some people are saying that Diddy is the black version of Epstein.
Wow. Well, if you're going to throw Diddy, you might as well throw his protege in, which was Clive Davis, right?
Oh well, there's a whole other. He's a whole other conversation. That guy.
Right.
Right? That is quite interesting. Clive Davis is a very interesting individual.
Yeah. Dangerous. I mean,
Yes, yeah, and also related a little bit to R. Kelly's career too,
yeah.
and Whitney Houston.
Well, it's the whole Whitney thing. Without going off topic, was actually just. I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but just dig deeper. Just do some Google Clyde Davis and Whitney and her death.
Yeah,
Kind of, yeah,
follow the money.
yeah.
Follow the money. Follow the money. Well, Donovan, I'm going to let you because I know you have always a lot of things on the go. Any final thoughts as it comes to Diddy, sexual violence, etc., and we'll let you go.
Yes. So sexual violence is definitely horrible. You know, nobody should ever be subjected to this type of activity under any circumstance. Man, woman, race, never. It should never happen. Now the question what we talked about is, do we stop listening to music of people who have committed some of the most horrific acts? Where do we draw the line? And because he's been technically acquitted of the most heinous ones, do we give ourselves permission to continue to listen to it? And do we selectively dismiss the body of work because of one person? So do we now say everybody else who contributed to this project is no longer relevant or should pay the price, right? So those are real hard questions, and again, it all depends where you fall on the, I guess, moral complex. But if we are going to judge society by how we still accept our national anthems, and that's, we don't blink an eye, and we could accept all of the products and luxuries that we are afforded to that have been created by some of the most horrific people in society under some of the most horrific circumstances, do we have to rethink ourselves about listening to something that would have, or watching a show that would have been instrumental to your upbringing or bring you joy in that time, in that context? And I'll leave it at that.
Well, as always, want to say thank you for taking your time. If we could put it up on the screen where you can get in contact with the Daily Scrum News, fantastic. And as Donovan will be coming on once a month, I think the first Monday of each month going forward for the next little while, to either share stuff from the Daily Scrum or just sharing things that are important to people who look like us and people who care about people who look like us. So, Donovan, as always, I want to say thank you for your time. Thanks for making the time, which is the most important thing you have. And we'll see you soon and be in touch with you soon, and keep the faith.
Thank you, and thank you to your audience for very insightful, thoughtful questions.
All right. Very much. Don't just manage your time, manage your energy. Remember to give yourself grace. Take care.
Cheers. Bye.
All right. We are back. Some more comments here. Fitness IQ says I probably won't not listen to most of his music that he's on it, or she says, or skip his music. I'll treat it like I treat it with R. Kelly. All right. So a few things. So I'm just going to put some things out in regards to sexual violence because I think it's an important part of this conversation. Society often focuses on teaching girls how to avoid danger. Things like don't walk alone at night or dress a certain way. We also, in fairness, have to focus on raising boys and men not to become perpetrators. You know, instead of telling our daughters how to stay safe, we also need to teach sons and men about respect, consent, and boundaries from an early age. Right? So, and also want to put out to parents, model respect in your own relationships, call out problematic behavior, teach your sons and your men to be allies, not bystanders. Some action steps we can do is encourage open conversations about consent and boundaries in schools and at home, and support survivors. Believe them, don't judge. Create safe environments for disclosure. Now, I will put it out there are some ladies that twist it a little bit, but most of them, yes. And also demand accountability. Push for better training for police, prosecutors, and judges on trauma-influenced response. And challenge rape culture. Speak out against victim blaming and sexist jokes. And I just wrap it around here at the end. Diddy's case is a headline, but the real story is how the justice system fails victims of sexual violence every day. Most rapists never see a jail cell, most rapists and abusers. Why? Because our society shames victims, doubts their stories, and lets perpetrators walk free. We need to talk about raising better men and boys, not just protecting our daughters, but to teach our son and our men not to harm. That's where real change begins. So I just wanted to add that at the end, some perspective. We also, APL says, that is a valid question. I still listen to I Believe I Can Fly, R. Kelly, but I also think about his problematic childhood and how little was done to help him. There we go. All right. So we're going to start shutting it down soon. But if you're watching on YouTube, I hope you're noticing something different. There is a community aspect now on YouTube, which lists the top fans or the top people making comments during the conversation on YouTube, during the show during YouTube. And number one, the top 3 fans today were the McMillan Group, Fitness IQ Cam, and also Derek. So thank you so much. Also, thank you. Shout out comments from Thunder Muff, Dr. Tachi, C Nurse K, Charmaine Hussey, Positive Lifestyle, and JJ Mars. So that's another reason why you should check it out on YouTube. You can see who's making the comments out there, who's making the comments. All right. And it was great to, another question, another comment here from Fitness IQ Cam. Always the head to the top of your neck and not between your legs. Okay. Getting some wisdom from Fitness IQ Cam. Ray, I acknowledge that this weekend too. All right. Good stuff. And it was great to have Ryan back. So for those who didn't catch at the beginning, Ryan Oneil Knight is back. So we'll have him back for the next little while on the Morning Vibe. Next conversation on Friday. We don't have anyone scheduled yet, but it may be a Freestyle Friday. So so if it's a Freestyle Friday, make sure that you bring your comments, any questions you want to ask myself or Ryan, or things we want to open up with you about. All right. So let's finish it off here like we always do. How do we always finish off? This is how we finish. Subscribe to the Dr. Vibe Show on YouTube and hit the notification button. And again, 1,850 subscribers. Thank you very much. That puts us in the top 10% of all YouTube channels when it comes to subscribers. Follow the Dr. Vibe Show on LinkedIn, Instagram, TikTok, Blue Sky, and Substack. I am active on all those at the present time. Join the Discord group. Email me at dr.vibe at the drvibeshow.com, or click the link that you see on the screen, or it's in your comment section to advertise your business, product, or service on our show. Email me at dr.vibe at the drvibeshow.com. And let's see, you can follow Ryan, his website, Ryan Oneil Knight, and that's Knight with a KN. I always say that, not an N, KN. RyanOneilKnight.com, LinkedIn, Ryan Oneil Knight, Instagram at Ryan.Knight99, and email address, work with me at RyanOneilKnight.com. Myself, the drvibeshow.com, YouTube, Facebook, and LinkedIn, The Dr. Vibe Show, Instagram at The Dr. Vibe Show, X at drvibeshow, and then we have email address dr.vibe at the drvibeshow.com. You'll also check me on Substack because we're broadcasting live consistently out, and also putting replays on there at drvibe.substack.com/subscribe, and on Blue Sky at drvibe.bsky.social. You can also watch replays of this epic conversation on the Morning Vibe. Not on the Morning Vibe. You can watch replays of the Morning Vibe at the Dr. Vibe Show, YouTube, Facebook, and LinkedIn. Afro Caribbean Business Network, which is on the Facebook, and Ryan Oneil Knight on YouTube. We got through all of that. Amazing. And we have some more comments here. APL says, have a great day, everyone. Fantastic. We got all through the comments. We got through everything. All right. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, producer Matt. As always, live your dream. If you can dream it, you can make it. Sometimes you have to get smaller to get stronger. Block assumptions. Aim bigger, aim better, aim higher, aim wider. Love, faith, and respect. Don't just manage your time, manage your energy. Remember to give yourself grace. And if you're not making money, make history. Try to do both and then always make it better. Thank you, everyone who watches live on the replay. God bless. Peace, well, keep the faith, walk good, and we'll see you soon.
This whole thing of using your business with plant-based products, don't you think your life should reflect that too?
Juke him, Carolyn. Juke him. The family loves us here because they're saying Fitness IQ Can says put a wig on to get in.
Oh God! Oh my God!
Like the ideas are just coming fast and furious here this morning. What? Okay, look at this. Global Women Ambassador. Good morning. Look forward. Okay.